you've probably seen people who it seems like they have uh, strategies that they're using, and it's like, how in the world is that working? Well, often it's because the mental malware isn't there, right? So people are confident, people are following through, people are trusting themselves, people are excited about showing up and adding value. They're not being held back by self-doubt or imposter syndrome or procrastination or conflicts that keep us from playing all in, and instead we hold back, right? And so when you see people that are making things happen and you're thinking, well, I have a better program than them, how come they're successful and I'm not, or they're at that level and I'm not? It's probably because they don't have the same kind of mental malware that you have, or they've found a way to get rid of it. And so Joshua and I have a lot of experience helping companies of one. So if you're just a single entrepreneur or you have a team, or I've worked with companies that had hundreds and thousands of employees, and we have found that the biggest obstacles are not the tech and the software and the tools and the strategies. The biggest obstacles for most people are the limiting beliefs that are inside that are wreaking havoc in our unconscious mind, and that's what we are calling mental malware. So we thought we would open up another discussion today and help people to recognize if they have any mental malware that's in place, and then see what we can do to start removing that, and so that you are able to start making more progress on your goals.
Well said. Well said. I think it might be useful to discuss how some of the things that we're doing currently, because we're unaware of the malware that's kind of running amok, and I'd like to start talking more specifically in terms of real life situations. I'll give you a specific example from my life. Okay, so like it took me 32 years to become a millionaire for the first time. And I started pursuing it literally at the age of 5, selling candy on the streets of New York and trying to and that was my whole reasoning. Like I wanted to become a millionaire because in my mind, freedom equaled millionaire. I don't know where that came from, but that's was the laydown for me. So I tried everything, or I seemingly tried everything. And then I finally realized that I'm not going to be able to, buy a book, Think and Grow Rich, put it under my pillow, or read it 100 times, and then that alone is going to make me rich, right? So I finally started taking massive action, and I started, putting things into play. And a lot of it was because my girlfriend at the time, who is now my wife, said to me, like when we first started dating, she saw all of these business boxes, these banker boxes. I mean, like full, probably 7 or 8 or 10 of them, full of business ideas and business structures that I had been working on in one way, shape, or form or another. And some of them were like 1% done. Some of them were like 95% done, and various things in between. And she just said to me, she said, why don't you just pick one and finish that? And so I gave myself permission to fail. And that's what literally what I called it. I said, I'm going to complete on this no matter what I do, no matter what it looks like. I'm going to pick one like she suggested, and I'm going to see it through to the end. And whether it works or it doesn't work, I don't care. Right. And so that worked. That worked great. And lo and behold, because of all the groundwork that I did leading up to that, all of the different programs that I had tried, up to that point, it was over $65,000 that I had invested in self-help programs and marketing and business, entrepreneurial training and marketing training and all of those things. And so, I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't doing things, but I was still scared, like the woman that you spoke of. I don't know whether it was Tuesday, Monday, or Friday, or maybe it was all three. I don't remember now. But that she was just afraid to pull the trigger. That was me, right? And so I finally, I took my wife's advice, or my girlfriend's advice at the time, and I went to work on it. And I said to myself, no matter what happens, I said, what does happen doesn't matter. What does matter is that I get to celebrate the fact that I actually did something from beginning to end, and I can celebrate that doing that and feel good about doing that. So that created closure and momentum for me. And lo and behold, it worked. And I literally named that permission. I gave myself permission to fail, because that was what was going on. I needed to say, like, and that's where I also started to develop the idea around process goals versus outcome goals, where a process goal is that I'm just going to do what I said I'm going to do in the time that I said I'm going to do it, and I'm going to see it through, and I'm going to celebrate the process of doing it, and I don't care what the outcome is until I build up that momentum and habit. So
that's huge. What you just said. I mean, that's a big deal, Joshua, because so many people start heading down this path that they've created for themselves, and then they're not getting the result that they think they should. And so they start going off the path, or they stop, right? That's why, I've interviewed so many of the top performers and high achievers in the world, and they always say the same thing. You just got to keep persisting. Persistence is really the key, and you've said that as well. And so I think that that's huge, that you are sharing to focus so much on your process and what you're going to commit to and how you're going to follow through on that, instead of constantly worrying about, is it working? Is it working?
Yeah, for sure. And the persistence, sure. But I also realized, and this is where some of the malware will start to make sense. So within 18 months of making that decision, of deciding that I was going to see it through no matter hell or high water, it was going to make it, it was time to see what was going to happen. Within 18 months of that decision, I was a cash millionaire. And not
what
just
does that mean, a cash millionaire?
Well, there was somebody that used to call it a centime millionaire, where my earnings, I was liquid for $1 million. And it wasn't tied up in equity in my business. It wasn't net worth of my business and my real estate holdings or whatever. It was that I had $1 million, dollars in like cash money.
Let me ask you something else, because you said so many great things. What did you mean when you said I gave myself permission to fail?
That whether it works, quote unquote, works, or it doesn't work, I'm going to take the pressure off myself of having to have it look a certain way, having to like be a millionaire by Friday, or am I building the right business that's going to make me a millionaire? Well, I didn't know if I was or I wasn't, but I'll tell you what, making the decision that led me 18 months down the road to becoming a millionaire was not, I repeat, was not the same business that I started with. It led me there, and I would never have been able to get there had I not, seen the opportunities and create it. But I also would not have let myself get into motion if I was so attached to it looking a certain way and being successful and have to have it perfect and all of the things that we attach to it. But that's so then persistence was my theme song. Massive action and persistence was my theme song. And because that's what made me a millionaire for the first time. So those were the tools that I relied on. And so what ended up happening over the next 10 years, from age 32 to 42, is I made and lost tens of millions of dollars multiple times, up and down, up and down, up and down, until, about 2009, when I realized that, like, I'm miserable, like, this sucks. And what I'm getting at is that I did not realize that persistence alone, persistence for the sake of persistence, being busy for the sake of being busy, driving forward for the sake of driving forward, trying to like none of that was fulfilling to me. And I didn't realize that was the very thing that I was fighting against. Right. And so that's a prime example, at least from my life, of like all of those tools worked for me. And so why did it stop working? It's not like I didn't enjoy my life during that time, but something was missing or whatever. And what it was is I was looking for something to cure the emptiness, or to complete me, or to fix me, or basically to make me feel better than I was feeling. And I couldn't get that satisfaction from anything that I was doing in business, from any relationship that I had with my wife and my daughter, and and the friends and the respect and the all of the material things. None of that filled the gap, even though I thought it would. So for like for those 10 years, it was like, all right, what's the next figure that I can get to? What's the next number? Whether it's a in dollars and cents, or new clients that I can bring on, or that I new book sales that I can do for one particular product or book or author. What's the next thing that I can do? Not ever bothering to stop and take an inventory of like, where are we going? Like, not just like set a goal, achieve a goal, set a goal, achieve a goal, visualize that goal, recite it, put it on your mirror, repeat it back a million times. Okay, but what if you chose the wrong goal? Where are you going? And so that's where I think, I believe it was Stephen Covey that first popularized this, but like, you're working so hard to climb that ladder, but you never bother to notice whether the ladder is leaning against the right building or not. All of those things that you said before, the little details, could be examples of how they did work, or they are working, or they did work for you up to a point, but then they stopped working. And like, why did they stop working? But you don't realize that they stopped working, so you double down on them. Well, it's the new hack, it's the new technique. I gotta invest in the latest, greatest technology or hack, or the Facebook algorithms shifted again, and the smackdown, and oh my God, now Apple's the iOS 14 is there, so now I've got to completely shift my entire. That's the reason why I'm not having the success that I want to have. It's not always just cut and dry in terms of beating yourself up. Yeah, that's the obvious one, and I think we've done enough work on ourselves that we know that we're doing that we're feeling bad about ourselves. We might not know why we're doing it, and we might not, we might be throwing a pity party, and and we're real good at knocking the crap out of ourselves, and at the same time, the things that we're trying to do to get relief from that when we're knocking the crap out of ourselves is to double down on the stuff that we're going to be knocking the crap out of ourselves even more, because now we're going to be working even harder. And when that snapback occurs, because that was the thing for me, is like, I couldn't take a break in that 10-year period. I had to keep pushing, because the instant that I took a break, if I was in a down cycle or an up cycle, it was just a matter of time before it all came crashing down. Well, what kind of a real business is that, right? But the point is that it was the snapback, and the periods of the snapback, between the snapbacks, were getting smaller and smaller and smaller. Meaning that, like, at first it was like, it took me 32 years to become a millionaire for the first time, and I didn't, experience a significant setback for another 2 years or so. Then it was like a year and a half, 6 months, and the timeline started getting shorter and shorter, because I was snapping back, but I was doing all the same things. But I, sheer will, determination, persistence, I'm going to power my way through it. And that was still, it was taking all that I could give from it, the amount of energy that I had to give to it. And it just was like wearing me out. But I didn't realize it, because I didn't know anything. So then I doubled down again. And I'd have a little bit of success for a little bit of time. And it wasn't until I launched something, and it was the first time that I launched something in a long time, that it didn't go nearly as well as I wanted it to go. And it wasn't like, there was no reason why it should have been that hard, right? It was just an offshoot, a variation of what I'd been doing in different ways, shapes, or forms. And early indications it was phenomenal. But there was no reason for me to, it just wasn't working, because I wasn't working. So anyway, I know I just went on a Shafi log. That's a monologue by Shafi.